Essay, it is said, reflects your personality because in the essay, your presentation is very important. Your thinking pattern is important. Your thinking, the way you write is going to reflect your thinking, is going to reflect your presentation. So there are various things you need to keep in mind before writing an essay, and we are going to discuss some of the things that you need to keep in mind while writing an ethical essay, or writing a philosophical essay and writing an educational essay. uh, these are some of the things that you need to keep in mind while writing an essay, and let's discuss all the relevant points. The first point is subject knowledge, relevant points, and facts. Before choosing the essay, be sure that you have subject knowledge, or you have read about the subject that you are going to choose, about the topic that you are going to choose. Because the subject of a philosophical or an ethical essay is very tricky, I would say. In minimum amount of words, in minimum number of words, a lot is to be written. So you must have read vastly to write about the essay in around 2000 words. So you have to be very clear about that. You have to be confident that you will be able to write enough, you have enough material in your mind, and you have read enough to write about it. So that is your subject knowledge. It usually happens that when you choose the subject, when you choose a particular topic which is there in the question paper, once you start writing a rough draft, you realize that points are not coming to your mind. So this should not be the case. You should be able to directly hit the bull's eye, or you should be able to directly relate to the topic which is given in the question paper. Do not digress, do not write irrelevant points. So you need to be very careful about this particular part, about writing relevant points related to the subject matter. And facts, sometimes if the essay demands that you can write, you can give certain factual information also. So that is the meaning of the word facts. This is the first point. Let's see the second point. This is very important. Most of the times it happens that it is believed that UPSC tests your contemporary knowledge, or UPSC tests your knowledge about the current events which are taking place in and around you. So try to see if you can relate the topic that you have chosen, the subject that you have chosen, if you can relate it with any contemporary event or any contemporary incident or any contemporary matter. If that you're able to do that, and if you feel the subject that you have chosen is, you can explain it well with an illustration from a contemporary incident, a contemporary matter, that will fetch you good marks, because it shows your understanding of the current scenario. At the same time, it will also show the linkages that you can establish with the statement or with the subject which is given in the essay, and with the contemporary event. So that is really important. Let's see the next slide. Next point, I would say, this is again somewhat related to the first point. We can say, when you have chosen a topic, try to recall any journal, any report, any statistics, any books which may directly or indirectly refer to that topic. That is going to help you to expand on the essay. And this, I would say, is the most important point that you need to remember while writing an essay. Essay, as I said in the very beginning, is more about presentation of your ideas. It is not about representing, or it is not about reproducing your information. Information, as you have come to this stage where all the aspirants have information, but here it is more about organization of this information. Here it is more about presentation of your information. In that context, this point is very, very important, where I'm saying research first, think first, and write second. So in this context, we need to remember rough draft. I'm sure all of you must have heard, must have read, must have learned the importance of writing a rough draft. And What you can do is you can first prepare a draft. I would also show you how you're supposed to do that. You can prepare a draft, and in that draft you can draw a tree diagram, you can draw a flow chart, and as the points come to your mind, when after you have chosen the topic, after you have finalized down on a topic, as the points come to your mind, you can start jotting down the points. Because once you start writing the essay, and if the points are going to flow to your mind, if the points are going to come to your mind, it is going to be difficult to erase something and go back. And as we all know, essay has, this is also another point that I have discussed, essay has a linear structure. Now all of you are aware of this meaning of the word linear. Linear structure, it means one point is first point, and then you have the second point, and then you have the third point. If you feel you're writing something about the third point and you want to go back, you have recalled something about the first point, it is not possible. So in this context, it is important that you research first, you think first, and then you come to the writing part of it. And this is closely related with the rough draft that I'm talking about, and we'll see how a rough draft is to be made. So we are going to have a rough draft, and all the points that come to your mind while writing that, while thinking about that subject, all the related events, the contemporary events, if you can think of any contemporary incident, you can jot down those points, you can draw tree diagrams, you can draw arrows, and then you can actually start writing your essay. Okay, so what should be the ideal structure of a philosophical, ethical, or an educational essay? We'll focus more on a philosophical or an ethical essay. Educational essay, it is a little easier to write than a philosophical or an ethical essay, because changes are continuously taking place in the educational sector, and you can always relate to that, and you can write out here. And you must have read a lot about educational development and changes in the educational policy, or you have studied the historical development of education, and therefore this point, educational essay, it would be much easier to attempt than a philosophical or an ethical essay. So let's actually begin. Right from the time when we all started writing essays, we are aware that our essay is supposed to be divided into, I wouldn't say divided, but it should be, kind of into three parts, that is the introduction, body, and conclusion, without actually naming it. So you need to have the introduction, you need to have the body, you need to have the conclusion. So when the examiner is reading your essay, it should appear to the examiner, this in the initial part of the paper of your essay, you have actually exposed, you have brought about an explanation of the topic, and in the middle there should be a focus on analyzing the topic from various angles, and towards the end there should be a conclusion which would sum up all your ideas, not in the sense of a summary, but yes, it should be a conclusion in the sense of making a universal statement, making a general statement related to the topic. And at the same time, you can also have future implications about that subject that you have chosen. So a roadmap to your essay, this is the most important point we need to remember while writing our essay. In order to give the examiner an understanding that you are a well-read person, it is important, it is advisable, I suggest you begin your essay with a fable or a quotation or any data that you remember, or a question or a story. Of course, all this has to be, I emphasize that it has to be related to the line, or it should be related to the subject, it should be related to the topic that you have chosen. So if you have to talk about morality, if you have to talk about consistency, if you have to talk about confidence, and if you have to talk about pace, you can in let's say 2 or 3 sentences, you can give an example of the hare and hare and the tortoise. We all must have studied this fable, and which talks about consistency, which talks about having consistency in doing whatever in whatever you're doing. An important way of beginning your essay could be one of these methods, and I would be explaining each one in detail. We'll focus on each one in detail. So you can start your essay related to the subject that you have chosen, related to the topic that you have chosen, with a fable. For example, all of you must have studied about the tortoise and the hare, which has the moral where there is a race between the two, and in the race, the tortoise is. The hare is confident that he would win the race, but all of us ultimately know that it is the tortoise who wins the race. So this moral, this fable details, this fable tells us that slow and steady wins the race, and overconfidence is not of much use. So you can talk about this story in 2 or 3 lines, focusing on the moral. And to talk about quotation, if you, of course, as I said, it should be related to the topic, and you can, if you're using the quotation, it is advisable that you use a quotation in the words of the person of the person who has made the quotation. For example, winners are those who never, winners are not those who never fail, but those who never quit. Winners are not those who never fail, but they are those who never quit. So this is a quotation which is given by the former president APJ Abdul Kalam. And if you have to write about success, if you have to write about never giving up attitude, you can quote this, and you can also mention the name of the person who has made the statement, who has said those lines. So that would be about quotation. You can also use, if you're talking about education, if you're talking about literacy rate in India, or you're talking about let's say the economical the development or the economical status of the country, you can focus on the data. And of course, one thing you need to remember while mentioning this, that is it should be quoted from an authentic source. What do I mean by authentic source? It could be from the Economic Survey of India, it could be from the India Yearbook, or it could be from Kurukshetra, from Yojana, from the National Sample Survey organizations, from their survey. So it should be an authentic source that you're quoting, and or that you're referring to the statistics. So that also it is possible to begin your essay with data. Another way of beginning your essay, a philosophical or an ethical, another way of beginning your ethical or a philosophical essay could be with a question. What is the question that comes to your mind immediately after reading the topic? So those questions can be posed, and this would be in the introduction. This would also mean that your essay is an attempt to answer those questions. So you can begin with questions, and I have given examples of how to begin an essay with a question. We will be studying that through an example from a UPSC from the UPSC asked essay questions. You can also think of beginning your essay with a story. It's not always necessary that the story has it is written by somebody. You can also just think of a story with a moral, and a story, if you're talking about, let's say, education, then you can think of a story how a girl, let's say, is trying through all means. She's also doing something at home, some work at home, and at the same time she's traveling a long distance to attend school, and at the end of the day she's actually passed this examination with good marks. So you can just have how efforts are important, how hard work is important, and at the same time your role in a family setup is also important. So you can also talk about, you can begin your essay with a story. So these are some ways where you can, which you can have in the introductory paragraph, and one of the ways of beginning your essay. Next is, this is related to this, whatever quotation, fable, data, question or story you are going to write in your essay, it is very important that it has to be related to the subject or the topic that you have chosen. It should not be irrelevant, it should not be out of the context. So please keep this in mind when you're writing the essay. Let's move on to the next part. We have discussed how an introductory paragraph should begin. The introductory paragraph is a roadmap to your entire essay. So you have to keep this in mind. The introductory paragraph is going to give the examiner an impression of how you're going to make an attempt to write the entire essay. It will develop a particular kind of impression in the mind of the examiner about what is going to come in the next two parts of the essay, that is the body part and you can say the conclusion part. Okay, so when you're writing, now that you have finished writing the introductory paragraph and you're going to start writing the middle part of an essay, that is also called the body part. So you're going to divide it into paragraphs. All of you are aware of that. But some things you need to remember while writing a paragraph are that every time you write a new idea, every new idea that you write should come in a new paragraph. The first line in the paragraph is usually about what the paragraph is going to be, or it is going to be, let's say, the heading of the paragraph, we can say that. So that is what you need to keep in mind while writing a paragraph. Another thing is, try not to make any paragraph too long, or nor should any paragraph be too short. Of course you need to follow this new idea with a new paragraph, and since it is the paragraph which makes or which links the essay and makes it a whole, you need to use connectives between the paragraphs, such as in addition to, moreover, nevertheless. So that establishes a linkage, that establishes a continuity between the paragraphs. So using connectives is very important. Next is, in the body you need to have a lot of ideas, you need to have arguments, and you need to have statements that would show your understanding of the topic that you have chosen. So you need to make arguments, sometimes you also need to make counter arguments to support your statement. Whatever ideas are related to the paragraph, whatever ideas are related to the subject, you need to mention that here. And you can also make certain statements, you can state them and then you can explain those statements if that is the topic that you have chosen and if it requires that. So this is what would comprise the body of the essay. Any information that you remember, that you recollect from your general studies reading or from your current events reading, can all be included here. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, this is the third part of your essay, and that is the conclusion part. You do not need to mention this to conclude, because you're coming towards the end of the essay. It is understood that it is the way, it is your way of ending the essay. So certain things have to be kept in mind while writing the conclusion. There must be some reference to the introductory paragraph and the conclusion paragraph. So there should be an try to establish a linkage between the first and the last paragraphs. Between the first, I mean the introductory paragraph, and between the last paragraph, that is your concluding paragraph. It is advisable, it is preferable that you you end your essay with a compound sentence, simply for the reason that a compound sentence appears to be more balanced. It gives a balanced opinion. And as civil servants, uh, you need to always have a balanced opinion. So this helps you with a balanced opinion. So it is preferable, advisable that you end your conclusion with a compound statement using yet, and, or. Okay. It is also possible, like in the introductory paragraph, you began with a quotation or a statement or a reference or a fable. It is possible that you end your conclusion with a quotation or with a reference. So this if you're talking about health, or if you're talking about a philosophical essay, and if you're talking about an educational essay, and you recall something that the prime minister, or you recall something that a leader of the United Nations has said, you can definitely give a reference to that, and you can end your essay with that quotation or with that reference. That would be that would create a lasting impression on the examiner. And these are important things you need to write. This comes from your overall thinking. This is about universal statement. Try to end your essay on a note that shows universal application. It should not be restricted to any particular community, particular subject, particular reference. It should be your conclusion should make a universal statement which has a general application and not any specific or particular application. So try to make a universal statement that again shows your all balanced thinking. And as I said, this point is related to the first point. All the ideas, facts, and ideas, fact, references, statistics that you have mentioned in the middle part of the essay, all of them should be tied together, or should be a linkage between all of them. And this can be in a single statement, in a single sentence, you can conclude that here, showing a linkage between all of that. Okay. uh, these are some points. After this is what we just saw was the structure of the essay. Now these are some points which you need to keep in mind before actually choosing your topic. Just small things, and let's see each one of them. Whatever arguments, this, as I said, philosophical topics, or philosophical topics, or ethical topics, they are very tricky. With minimum number of words you need to write a long essay. So in that sense, whatever arguments, whatever statements, whatever matter you have thought of while writing this essay, this should really be strong enough, and it should come to your mind. There should be a free flow of these thoughts to your mind. Only then you will be able to attempt this kind of essay. So that you should have arguments for, and you should also have arguments in favor of and also against. So be sure about this before you choose that essay. You need to draw an outline or a sketch, and this, as I said, is a prerequisite. So while I was talking about research first and write second, this is related to that. And what do I mean by this? Draw an outline, draw a sketch, and this is a prerequisite. What you need to keep in mind is whatever topic that you have chosen, this is the topic. And as I said, we are going to divide the topic into three main parts: introduction, we are going to have the body, and we are going to have the conclusion. So you can always have this rough draft in your mind. You can also, apart from your mind, you can also have it on paper. And then after choosing your topic, immediately jot down what exactly are you going to use in the introduction. So whatever things come to your mind after choosing the subject, you can write that here. Are you going to begin with a reference, or are you going to begin with some data, with some statistics, with a fable, with a story, whatever comes to your mind? And what is it are you going to talk about? Are you going to talk about the tortoise and the hare? Are you going to write some short story? After that, you're going to talk about, after choosing the topic, you're going to talk about, does any definition come to your mind? Do you need to understand, do you need to explain to the examiner what is the meaning of those lines? Are those lines complex? And so you need to elaborate on the meaning of the line. If you remember a particular definition which is again given by a theorist, which is given by some economist, a scientist, you can also write down that definition. And at the same time, you can look into the historical context of that statement. What is, in what historical context that statement has been given, you can write that also here. So these are some things that you need to write here. And again, when you say historical context, what exactly has come to your mind? Is it in the pre-independence movement? Is it if you're talking about the nation, is it prior to globalization? Is it during the globalization? So whatever historical context you're talking about, in what historical context that statement has been made, you can mention that here. And so this is about the introduction. When you're talking about the body, again, in the tree diagram, if you have a written body, what are the points that are coming to your mind immediately after mentioning this? It is, as I said, it is very important you write this, because you're writing the essay in the stipulated amount of time. It is natural that you're under pressure, so you might not be able to recall the points at the spur of the moment. So it is important that you, as the points come to your mind, you just keep jotting down them. So you, as I said, you need to have paragraphs here, and each paragraph is going to begin with a new idea. So once you choose the topic, what is it that you're going to have in the paragraph? So in the first paragraph, in the second, in the third paragraph, so what is it that you're going to have, that you can write out here. You can also talk about some statistics that you're going to give to prove your point. You can write it out here. You can give an explanation of the statistics, why something has happened and why something has not happened. You can talk about that also here. You can also talk about some you can talk about questions that you have mentioned in the introductory paragraph, and you can make an attempt to answer those questions. You can give arguments and counter arguments here, what argument you're going to give, and what is the, you can actually mention that argument. This is A, the argument is A, and that the counter argument will be B. So these are the points that you need to remember. Here you can also give examples. This is very important, examples. And you can also give illustrations. You can give examples and illustrations to prove your understanding of the subject. So this is what would go into making the middle part of the essay. And coming to the next part, in the conclusion, after you've chosen the topic, what exactly are you going to end it with a quotation? Whose quotation are you particularly going to write? Are you giving reference to the Prime Minister? Are you giving reference to let's say an economist? Or are you going to quote from the National Sample Survey of India? National Sample Survey. Are you going to end it in this manner, or are you going to, what is the universal statement that you have thought of? You can also write down that universal statement here. You can write it in short out here, and then you can also how are you going to end it? In what lines are you going to end it? So you can just make a rough mention of those lines, so you don't need to write the entire line. But yes, you're going to end it with this particular point. You can say, point number 1, point number 2, point number 3. So this is just a rough writing of whatever you're going to do in the essay. So this is what I mean. Draw an outline sketch is a prerequisite. Now, as I said, these are small but important points that you need to remember while writing the essay. The next point is about language. This is a very important point because it is an understanding that if I use flowery language, if I use big words, it shows that I'm a well-read person. No, that is not applicable to your essay. You can get good marks in your essay even by writing simple language. At the same time, it should not be vague, it should not be unambiguous, it should be very clear. Use only those words of which the meaning of which you are confident. So use simple words, use simple language to convey your meaning with which you are comfortable. Only then you will be able to present your ideas in the best possible manner. And because you're writing an essay, it is important that you focus on writing using the correct grammar. Usually, mistakes are made by students when they attempt to write long sentences. Long sentences have a chance of making a grammatical error, so you can avoid very long sentences and try to use, a new state sentence for a new point, let's say. And your sentences become vague when you have very long sentences, so you can avoid vague and long sentences. And there is active voice and passive voice. If you focus on using, if you practice on using active voice, that is going to help, because active voice is related to being assertive. So if you're going to use active voice, it also shows you're assertive in your presentation of ideas, and that will also help. Let's move on to the next part. It is very essential that you understand the question. What is the requirement of the question? Are they asking you to outline? Now, this is also applicable to your GS questions. Are they asking you to just outline about a particular subject? Are they asking you to evaluate one thing against the other? The pros and the cons. Are they asking you to compare A or with B? So what exactly is the examiner asking you? Is the examiner asking you to discuss? Is it he asking you to outline, evaluate, or compare? So understand the question and then attempt to organize your ideas from that point of view, because essay is not merely presenting your ideas and presenting your information. As I said in the very beginning, all of us, rather all of you, are all well-read people, and that is why you have come up to this stage. So here everybody has the information, but what makes your essay different from another essay will be your presentation, will be your organization of ideas. So this organization of ideas is going to be important and is also related to understanding the question. This is the logical structure you have to follow while writing the essay. This is also another point why you need to first prepare an outline or a draft, because once you write a particular point, everything related to that point should come in that paragraph. Another point comes to your mind, you recollect another point about an argument, you cannot go back to it and write because of the linear structure of the essay. And if you have a draft, you can always, in the first paragraph, you're going to talk about a particular subject, about a particular idea, whatever is related to that idea, you can jot it down there in the rough draft, and this will help you to follow this logical structure and a linear structure. Essay follows the linear structure, and one point should come after the other, one idea should come after the other. There should be a relation between the two ideas, and there should be a linkage between the two ideas. So this will establish a connection in the overall, in the entire essay. Let's move on to the next point, which is multidimensional essay, holistic point of view. So we all know that holistic would be an all-round, meaning of holistic is all round. So when you're thinking, see that your thinking is coming from all the angles. Try to think about the topic from, let's say, from a sociological point of view. Try to think about try to think about the point about the subject from a historical point of view. What would be the economical viewpoint, or what would the subject topic mean from a political situation, from a political scenario, and what are the contemporary implications of that topic, if it has any relevance to the contemporary times. So this is the meaning of a holistic point of view. Try to encompass all this in while writing your essay. This is what I also mean by multidimensional view. Your essay should try to cover all the angles, and this also shows your understanding, your viewpoint as a person, as a human being. So you can also write about that. What are you supposed to avoid while writing an essay? This is a point talking about what you're not required to write in an essay. It usually happens that with a philosophical essay and with an ethical essay, as I said right in the beginning, points usually don't quickly flow to your mind, and you don't recollect probably. It is difficult to recollect everything at that particular point of time to your topic. So what students usually tend to do, or this happens with them, is if the quote is let's say by Mahatma Gandhi, so what they would usually do is they would write in detail about Mahatma Gandhi as a person. That is not what is required in the essay. That is not what you're supposed to do in the essay. So you can if the quote is taken from a particular book, you can mention the book. You can mention the book and what exactly is the writer conveying through that book. You can mention it in a line or two, but that is it. You do not, if it is an autobiography, you do not need to mention, or you do not need to write in detail about let's say if you're talking about Wings of Fire of APJ Abdul Kalam, you do not need to write the biographical sketch of, let's say, the former president, or you're not required to write about Mahatma Gandhi. So you just make a mention and that is it. Do not go into details. Try to support, I wouldn't say try, I would say you have to include illustrations, and you have to give examples to support your argument, to support your essay, to support the point that you are making. This shows your comprehension of the topic. This shows your reading and understanding of the topic. What a well-read person you are, what how have you understood the topic. And if you're able to do it with examples and illustrations, that is the best way to prove that yes, you have a grasp of the subject, you have a grasp of the topic. So this is going to help you. If you're going to write a line or two about the biographical sketch of a biography of the author or of the writer, if you are going to give a definition of this subject that you have chosen, if you are going to write the historical context in which the statement has been made, or if you have to talk about a theory, all this should come towards the beginning, or in the first part of the essay, that is the introductory part. This is usually not seen in the middle part. Middle part is reserved for arguments, counter arguments, and explanation. So all these points would usually come towards the beginning and would be a part of your introduction. The last thing that you need to remember while writing an essay, last but not the least, is your presentation. As I said in the beginning, an essay is a reflection of your personality. It is because it reflects how you think, and your thinking is going to reflect your personality. So it is a way of showing the examiner how you think, and how you think is your presentation. And what is presentation made of? Presentation is made of all these small things. Whichever language you're writing in, every language has its own grammar, every language has its own way of sentence construction. So you need to focus on the minute details of those sentence constructions. You need to focus on the overall grammar, that is the central sentence construction. You need to focus on the style. Every language has a particular style, a particular way of writing. You need to grasp that. You need to show that you have understood the style of writing. You need to pay attention to the punctuation marks wherever an exclamation is needed. You have made what is the meaning of power. You have made this, and if you forget to write to put a question mark, that statement, that sentence is not going to be of much use. So you need to have the appropriate punctuation marks. It could be a comma, it could be a full stop, it could be a question mark, it could be an exclamation mark. Whatever punctuation marks are required at that point of time, make it a point to include the punctuation marks. This is a very important thing. It is also related to your simple language that I have said, simple language and simple words. If you are going to stick to using simple words, the meaning of which you know and you are confident, you would you would not fall into the trap of making spelling mistakes. So pay attention to the smallest spellings, that smallest words that you are going to use. As I said, preparing a rough draft is very important, because that will show your organization, that will show the linkages. So your entire essay can be organized if you're able to show the linkages, if you're able to use connectives, if you're well organized, and if you research first and you think afterwards. And the linkages can be established with the use of connective words, which I have discussed right in the beginning. And your conclusion should show your balanced opinion. Your conclusion should reveal your personality. Your conclusion should reveal your thinking, and your thinking should be balanced. Do not show the examiner a biased opinion through your conclusion. Your conclusion, as I said, should be a universal statement, should have universal application, should be a general statement. So this is some points you need to remember while writing a philosophical essay and an ethical essay. Thank you.